You're listening to Parents, You've Got This, the expert guide to parenthood. The complete guide to pregnancy, birth, baby and parenthood.
This week on the Expert Guide to Parenthood, we're talking all about toilet training, and it can be an exciting time in a family, ditching those nappies, but it can also be a troublesome time. And I know myself, sometimes I wish you could just outsource toilet training, but you can't, but we're giving you the very next best thing.
Today we are joined by our toilet training expert, Monica Ferrie from Toilet Training Educators. Monica is an expert in how children learn new things, and she is perfectly placed today to explain to us all how we can best teach our little people this really important milestone. Welcome, Monica. Thank you so much for being here with us today.
Thank you. It's great to be part of this.
So let's talk about the beginnings of toilet training first. So at what age is our little one ready to toilet train?
So there is a huge body of research that says that our little ones are ready between 19 months and 2.5 to begin. So there's some signs that we need, but all the research says earlier is better than later.
And what are those readiness signs?
So we would be looking for two types of signs, so behavioural and physical signs. So when we're talking behavioural, we're looking for those signs that you might see many little ones want to go off and hide. So that would be one of the behavioural signs you'd be seeing. They also start to get really interested. So they're following you into the toilet. It can be an annoying time for parents, but it's really important to let your little ones be curious and to follow you. They might want to use the toilet paper or pull it off the toilet roll and hand it to you, flush the toilet. Fantastic if they want to do that. The physical signs we're looking for is we want our little ones to be able to hang on to wee for about an hour and a half, 2 hours. So if they're going more often than that, we need to work on their bladder capacity and build that up so they can hold for that period of time. So that's one of the physical signs. They might start to get a bit antsy about poo in their nappy. That would be a physical sign, them pointing at their nappy and saying like off or poo, and clearly wanting to get rid of the nappy. So it's helpful as well if they can pull their pants up and down, but that's about their own self-confidence and control.
That's a funny thing that you mentioned that, Monica. I remember at this point I was a little bit sad actually. I had to throw away the dungarees because I had really enjoyed the cuteness of the dungarees, but you're right, that pulling your pants up and down is an important part of it. Before we delve into how to actually do it, can we talk about some of the myths that are out there? So, once you start exploring this world of toilet training, you hear about a 3-day, miracle instant toilet training program, or you feel like once you take the nappy off that you could never possibly put it back on. Can you talk to us about some of these and your stance on these?
Yeah, sure. I love being a myth buster, and those two that you said are actually quite different. One of them makes me feel bad, one makes me feel good. So the one that makes me feel bad is very few children will toilet train in 3 days. That is totally an exceptional experience, and expecting that of your child can be placing an enormous amount of pressure on them. Kids will take as long as they will take. That on average might be about 6 weeks, but it might take a child much longer than that. But 3 days, totally exceptional. And the programs that do that are actually about over-hydrating our little ones and basically having them sit on the toilet for like 3 days.
Yeah.
Which can be really, really traumatising. And we do see families who've had a go at that with their little one and can create real anxiety, and you don't need to do it. So that's one myth. The other one is my favourite myth that says that there is absolutely no truth, no evidence, nothing to support the idea that once you take a nappy off, you cannot put it back on. In fact, learning theory tells us that if we're going to learn something, and if you think about how you've learnt things, the time to process, the time to think about what worked and what didn't work is an important part of your learning. Same for your little ones. They're doing the same processing. They're not as conscious of it as we are as adults, but they need the time. So you can take the nappy off for a couple of hours in the morning, see how they go, and then put it on for the afternoon. If you've had enough, they've had enough, they won't forget, they won't become confused, they will pick up the next day or the next time, and they will remember what it was that they were doing and move forward.
I love that so much, because we put so much pressure on ourselves, to be the perfect parents, and also on our kids, and they don't need that pressure. We don't expect to, as you say, Monica, learn to drive a car in a day. There's a process.
Yeah, absolutely. And we want this to be as normal a skill development as it was for them learning to walk. And they self-regulated that. They stood up, they crawled, they sat down, they did that at their own pace. We would like this to be as stress-free as that experience was. We don't get it. We don't, as soon as the child stands up, we don't say, right, run, go.
Yeah, that's right.
What are you waiting for? Yeah. We don't serve 3-course meals when they start.
Yes.
Toilet training's the same. So really important. Take the pressure off yourself as parents and your little ones.
Yeah, that's really great advice. And so, Monica, if you've got a little boy or a little girl, do we toilet train them differently?
We toilet train them the same. We generally find that age bracket that I was talking about earlier, that 19 months to 2.5, at that age, boys are generally about 6 months behind girls developmentally. So they may be in that latter age when they start showing those signs of readiness. So timing may be different. Something we do want to do for little boys is to get them to sit down to wee at the beginning. Plenty of time for them to, and we've never had a challenge, we've never had an issue with a parent coming to us and saying, my little boy won't now stand up to pee.
So why do we do that?
So we do that because it's much easier for them to understand that you sit down to poo. So if we can get them to sit down to wee, it's just an easier kind of thought process for them that, okay, everything I do in the toilet I sit down to do. And weeing outside on plants and flowers, like, all little boys love to do that, doesn't make any difference to their experience in the toilet room. So we would get little boys to sit down. Dad may have to model that for them because they will have seen Dad standing up. So it can be helpful if Dad models sitting down. Not so easy sometimes for dads to remember, but it can help. It can help little boys if they see that method of having a wee.
It's also a little bit cleaner, a little bit less to clean up.
Yeah, that's right.
All for them sitting down for as long as possible.
Absolutely.
They can stay sitting down for everything.
Wait till they get a bit taller, and then
yeah,
they
that's
can,
right. That's
have
exactly right.
better aim.
Yeah. So on that, Monica, what are your thoughts around potties as opposed to stairs to a toilet or a little seat on top? What sort of equipment do we need when we're starting toilet training?
So equipment's important because, especially for pooing, equipment's important. We want our little ones to be as comfortable and feel as confident and safe as possible. So that's one reason. The other reason is a physical reason. So when we are pooing and when our little ones are pooing, it is actually much easier to poo if you have your feet planted. So you have your feet planted, that position that forces your body to be in opens up your canal, and it's much easier to get rid of the poo. So we want that for our little ones. It makes it easier for them to have their feet planted. If they're sitting on a toilet seat that has an adult-sized hole in the middle, then they're going to be worried about falling in. They can be nervous about that. So we needed something that makes the toilet seat, the hole, smaller, and we need something that they can plant their feet on. So the little stairs with the seat that goes over the toilet, they're wonderful because they solve both.
Yes.
A stool, and it doesn't matter whether it's one piece or two piece, but you do need both. Potties are great if that's what you want to do as parents, but it doesn't matter whether you choose, it doesn't matter which one you choose. Potties are sometimes really good for smaller ones because they can fit into the potty really, really nicely, sometimes more than bigger kids. So we also have never had a problem of transition from a potty to a toilet. So that's another kind of myth. Sometimes parents think that, oh, that's another step and I'll have to train that. We have never had an inquiry about that. Kids seem to get, oh, okay, I go from a potty to a toilet, no big deal.
Yeah, and I think too, parents often then tip the poo or wee into the toilet, so then the child is seeing, oh, that's where it goes.
Yeah.
Yeah. What about undies and pull-ups? Do you have a preference in what parents should look at when they're starting to train?
No, no preference for undies or pull-ups. However, that sensation of feeling wet is an important one for our little ones to get, because that's part of the feedback that says, oh, I've done a wee, I can feel that this is now different, and maybe that's not how I want to feel in the future. And a toilet offers me the opportunity to do something different. But I have to feel wet to begin to put together, I have a wee, oh, that creates that feeling, I don't like it, I need to go to the toilet. So if you're going to use pull-ups, and as I said, totally the decision of the parents, put something in them so the child gets that sensation, just like some toilet paper or some tissues, something, so our little one does get the sensation that, oh, this is wet and uncomfortable.
Monica, you have a saying which is, use the toilet to get rid, to get used to all your toilet training needs. Sorry, tongue twister. And can you talk to us a little bit about that and about how the toilet room is important in this process?
Yeah, so it's important to ensure that things are as easy for you as parents and as easy for the little one. So when a child is having their nappy changed and laying on a change mat with their arms in the air, and someone else is doing all the work, that's fantastic. That's so easy for your little one, but it doesn't actually help them to have any feel that they have a role to play, and that the toilet is important. So when we start, we're going to shift everything into the toilet room, and it's time to stop using the change mat. So we're going to change our little ones standing up next to the toilet to start to give them the message, oh, everything happens in here. This is the room. So it's really helpful if you can have a change of clothes in there, have the nappies in there, have everything that you need to deal with whatever it is that your little one does. That's helpful for them, and it becomes really helpful for you too.
So Monica, you've touched there on readiness signs, equipment, you've got your undies ready. What's the next step? How do we toilet train for success? So hopefully when you start to notice those signs, you've been thinking a bit about the language that you use and the way that you want to go about it. So the language that you use, it's really important to not use emotive language. It needs to be just neutral. So telling a child that, oh my God, they're so stinky or smelly or that's disgusting, or that projects a whole lot of messages about what's actually going on. So we want to try and just eliminate language like that. We also want to try and eliminate language that becomes, that links toileting to something else that a child may or may not want. So for example, you'll be a big girl or a big boy, or you'll be able to go to kinder, or you'll be able to go to school, or whatever that is. If only you were toilet trained. So suddenly we're ramping up the pressure here.
We don't need to do that. So just neutral language is something in preparation. And then the day that you decide, okay, I'm going to have a go, because you have to get to a point where you're going to have a go. And having a go, you're going to need to take the nappy off to have a go. So no big deal, really low key. You know what? We're going to wear undies today. And go for a couple of hours and see how your little one goes. When you start, you want to take them to the toilet, and language is important here as well. You're going to take them for a try. Never ask, and I'm sure all parents know this anyway, you never ask a child if they want to go to the toilet. The answer is always no. Always.
Busy.
Yes, exactly. So we're going to say it's time for a try. And if your child goes every hour and a half and you know that they wee every hour and a half, great. Take them every hour and a half for a try. If you know they can last 2 hours, then take them every 2 hours. But it's important to do that regularly for them, but no closer together. If we take a little one to the toilet every 30 minutes, we train their bladder and it never actually gets a chance to fill. Yes. And we want the bladder to fill, send a message to the brain that says, hey, I'm full. I need you to empty me. So really important not to take them too often. And everyone gets sick of that anyway. Yes. So an hour and a half, 2 hours. And you might decide that you're going to try that. Let's say you work from home. You're going to try that, although working from home with a little one that you're toilet training can be challenging, but you're going to try that every 1.5, every 2 hours. And when you've had enough, your little one's had enough, put a nappy on. If you can do that every day, great. If you can't, then do it when you can. You might start with weekends and have a try, see how your little one goes. If they seem to be doing great and it's not a problem for them, then stay in the undies in the afternoons. It's not kind of a race to how fast can we get this done. If there's childcare involved, talk to them, explain what you're doing, trying in the mornings, and then if there's been a few accidents, we're back into nappies, because it's much more important than that a little one actually wees and poos and holds. So repetition and consistency helps, but they'll get there anyway.
Yeah, and I love that, because there's nothing more pressure-filled than taking your little one who's just learning how to toilet train, taking them to the supermarket and not putting a nappy on, for example, and then they've weed ever at the supermarket. Like, you're mortified, they're mortified, everyone's trying to clean it up, when you could have just put a nappy on. But I think a lot of people have that myth, don't they, that you can't put a nappy on once you put a nappy on. So I love that advice from you.
Hugely important. When you go out, when you start, please don't take your little one out without a nappy. That great point. It's upsetting for the little one as much as it's a trauma for the parents, for a little one to have an accident in a public place. And it's not necessary. Yeah. So when they're okay at home or in familiar environments, then think about how you manage the when they're out. And often our little ones will come up to you and say, I don't want to wear a nappy. And when they start telling you that, then if they're okay at home, they've got control.
Yeah, and I also love what you said there before about childcare, making sure it's consistent at both places, because I think it makes it easier for kids if they're doing it in childcare, because all the other kids are going too and they're getting it role modelled to them, whereas not necessarily they've been role modelled at home. That's why the toilet room can sometimes be a scary place, because we've got the door shut, so yes. They're not necessarily allowed to come in for number twos, for example. Yeah. So I like that about talking to your childcare provider about it and making it consistent at both home and
that's helpful. That consistent messaging is helpful. Or Nana, or if there's someone else who's a carer in the child's life, talk to them about how you would like to, as a parent, go about training your child. Sometimes grandparents can be a bit more demanding.
That's right.
Yeah.
But
I have a few different ideas.
I worked out why that is, because like I always had very caring, Mum, I love you, but very caring, parents that would come on and say, aren't they toilet trained yet? And I realised why they actually toilet trained so much earlier is because she had cloth nappies.
Yeah.
So of course she doesn't want to be hosing off poos from nappies. So there was a much greater incentive, I think, for her to toilet train earlier. Whereas I think the nappies, that's probably why we toilet train a bit later these days, is because it's convenient, and often you have another child at the same time they get ready to that toilet training age, and so I think parents, we just go, it's too hard, I'll just concentrate on the newborn and not toilet train.
Yeah, our little ones spend a year longer in nappies now than they did 20 years ago.
Wow.
And it is significantly about disposable nappies, the convenience of that.
Yeah, so I love the fact that, you need to look for these readiness signs, because it will become easier for you as a parent if you catch them when they're ready to go.
Absolutely. That window of opportunity, hugely important, if you can, to take advantage of that window. Because once a child hits 3, the developmental milestones are saying to the little one, hey, you need to be autonomous and independent and start establishing control, which isn't kind of what we want in the toilet training space.
That's right.
Oh, Monica, I love how you've talked about the importance of language in different situations, and accidents are inevitable. What do you suggest parents do and carers when accidents do happen, and what sort of language should we use with our little one?
So, most importantly, stay calm, not apportioning blame, and it's part of the reason why the timing that you choose is also important. If you're in a stressful period in your life, then it's harder to be calm. It's harder to take a deep breath and just be neutral about it. And that's how we want to be. We want to be calm and neutral and, you've had an accident, let's get cleaned up. Into the toilet room, all accidents get cleaned up in the toilet room. So obviously we need to clean up the floor or wherever the accident was, but we take the little one into the toilet room to deal with the accident. But absolutely no blame apportioned to that when you're training.
And what about rewards? Should we be rewarding them every time they do a poo or a wee? What are your thoughts on rewards?
Rewards, I think, should be kept for when you're experiencing problems. When you start, expect success. Your little one is not viewing this as one of the major milestones of their first 5 years. They're just not. So when we create a big reward and say, when you poo in the toilet, you can have this, we're elevating the skill of using the toilet to something that is massive for them.
It's stressful.
Yeah, so, and it's not necessary. So save yourself the money and the thinking about, oh my God, what are they like? And they don't need it. So reward them with tiny things if you want to. So 2-year-olds are too young for star charts or incentives like that. But if you want to give them a Smartie or a sticker or something that you know they like, then feel free to do that. But it's not necessary to have incentives. It's also not necessary to have massive big celebrations. We've all heard the story about the child who does their first poo in the toilet and they ring everybody. They ring, mum and dad at work and grandma. Yeah, it happened.
That's right. And the poor kid's like, great, you told grandma I just did a poo, thanks.
And they don't understand why it's so massive. So all of a sudden then they get stage fright, and doing it again is like, oh no, I can't. Like, this is really
That's right.
huge.
Grandma.
So we don't need to over celebrate either. That you've done a poo, that's great. Good job. That's enough.
What about overnight Monica. I think that can be a daunting part once your little one's got it right during the day, and you think, oh, maybe it should be time that we should try taking off the nappy at night. What do you suggest? How do parents go about doing overnight toilet training?
So firstly, and this is another myth that is great to be busting,
Yes.
is you can't actually train a child to be dry at night. The reason why we don't wet the bed, the reason why 88% of kids are dry after the age of 6, so that's age 6, it's not younger than that, is because we are all genetically programmed to release a hormone at night when our bladder is full to say we need to remove some of the fluid that's in the bladder, resend it back into the bloodstream to maintain our blood volume. Now, that has we've only been aware of that since the late 1990s. So a lot of parents out there don't realise that actually there is genetic programming that is what is responsible for whether a child wets the bed or not. It is nothing to do with behaviour or trauma or anything else. The only other factor that plays a role is how deeply a child sleeps, because if a child's a light sleeper, their bladder is screaming at them, wake up, I'm full. So that those children will wake and go to the toilet. The deep sleeper will just wet the bed, and they'll wet the bed with as much wee at night as during the day. So they might wee the bed 3 times more. So we can't train our little ones. What we can do, though, is look to see if that hormone's working. So most kids wet the bed before midnight. So as a parent, check their nappy before you go to bed, and that will actually give you an indication of whether the hormone's working for your little one. If their nappy is full, then leave it. Don't put yourself through the stress of washing sheets night after night. So just keep doing that until you discover that, oh, okay, I can see their nappy's dry. That hormone will start to work. 88% of kids before 6, it'll start to work, and then we can, over a few weeks, take the nappy off, let the hormone stabilise. You might have a couple of wet nights while the hormone does that, but that's better than washing night after night.
Yeah, and for your child. Like, it's nothing worse than waking up feeling wet, and it's such a relief to hear that they're not doing it on purpose. Thank you so much, Monica. It's so incredible to have you on to share all of your expertise and tips. We'll also get you back on to talk about some of those troubleshooting issues with toilet training. You've been listening to the Expert Guide to Parenthood podcast. Never forget, parents, you've got this.
Join a Parents You've Got This masterclass today to be prepared, excited and educated for pregnancy, birth, baby and parenthood. Visit www.parentsyouvegotthis.com.au and sign up for a masterclass today.